yes, I think figuring out that particular strategy that you're going to teach is important, but that's a very different thing than hiding behind your design, your website, those images, because no one knows you exist back there. And so really, I think it's an element of fear, that there's that fear of success or fear of failure that's keeping them hidden in that season. What's the breakthrough? What's the thing? Because you talk, a lot of your clients talk about the launch portion of it. What's the breakthrough or the mentality you think that like pushes them from behind the scenes to like your forefront and now clients can see you?
Yeah, I'm laughing because, I know you see it a lot with your clients. I see it a lot with my clients before we work together. And people get stuck in the perfectionism of like being behind the scenes and let me create the systems. And I'm like, and the automations, I'm like, you don't have anything to automate. You got to master things manually first, babe.
That's so
I
true.
just have to keep it so real with my clients
Yes.
because I'm like, help me help you, please. I want to see you win, and you are blocking your own blessings, babe. Like, please.
That's so
Were
true.
you trying to create systems? Can we just get you to get one client?
Yes, yes. I literally had it. They were saying like, what CRM do you use? And I was like, well, let me not tell you what CRM I use right now, because that's not fair. Let me tell you what I used 7 years ago. It was an Excel spreadsheet. It was amazing. It's free. Like, use that thing, track that thing. When you get like 30 clients, then I'll have a conversation with you.
I'm cracking up. Yes. And I love, the energy of wanting to be proactive. So as we're laughing about this, it's not the making fun of you, but it's just hilarious because it's like, trust me when I say you don't need to have it perfect.
Yeah.
What you need to have is a clear message. You need to have a heart to serve, and then you need people to actually serve. And then you can figure out the systems. It's like we're trying to figure out a system without putting things into practice. And I think this even goes back to when we talked about clarity and how some people are feeling overwhelmed, so they're not clear, but then there's some people who are like, I'm waiting on God. And I even laugh at that too, because I'm like, are you waiting on God, or is God waiting on you? Because the clarity comes in the doing. The clarity comes in the taking action. And so what I find is that most people aren't able to find clarity in taking action because they want their action to be perfect, which is why they're hiding. Because they're like, if I can do all of these things behind the scenes, I'm perfected. By the time I'm visible, nobody will see flaws. And I'm like, you have to risk looking stupid. You have to risk messing up in front of people. But the issue is we have so much ego around it. Like, this insecurity of messing up in front of people is actually rooted in ego, because what are you so afraid of? Are you afraid that people are going to laugh at you? Are you afraid that people are going to criticize you? And it's like, who cares? None of these people are God. They cannot make or break your success. They are not the people who are in charge of your success or your failure. You have to put yourself out there, and you will find that more people support you than they criticize you anyway. So put yourself out there, find your people. You have to do trial and error, because that's really what entrepreneurship is. And take these failures as lessons of, I learned quickly. I remember having a conversation with freshman college students, and I'm like, if the advice that I would give you is to fail faster. Wake up every day testing out 3 things and look forward to failure, because failure is an indication that you're actually doing the work. And then the failure gives you the data that you need to say, this didn't work. Now I know better, right? I learned something new today that allows me to show up with the win that I needed to get the success and results that I wanted.
It's so true. And the people who are potentially going to criticize or critique, they're not, like the quote says, they're not the man in the arena, right? They're not the one actually
100%.
throwing the mud on the wall and putting it on their face as they go into war to face their own giants. And sometimes that giant is just being publicly known, right? That there's fear in that ego piece has to die, and it will, it will, over and over and over through time. And then you'll get to a place where you're like, it doesn't matter. I can have the broccoli in my teeth, the pimple on my face. I can have the, wedgie that's just not going away sometimes in the front. And then you're like, this is just not working for me. I'm going to wear a long sweater today. Like, all these silly things are going to happen. And we just have to take those punches. Not even those moments aren't even failure. It's failure of ego. And so that is just you dying to self and actually allowing the Lord to shine through you. because that's what we're
Mm,
here to do. That's ultimately is to reflect his image. And though he is the perfect one, that's why his radiance, his joy, his love, his kindness, all these fruits of the spirit, those are the perfect things that we're giving out. We're just the one carrying them in our little baskets and like hoping that the thing that we're passing out is good enough. And I love the
yeah.
understanding of that for people is like, if we take the emphasis off of ourself and we put it on the one that we're meant to serve, then people
Mm,
flock to that space because people want to be served. And I think
mm,
that's an odd thing because they're in a receiving perspective, but people need help. And I think our messages
yeah.
ultimately help people, regardless of what field we're in.
That is so good and so beautiful. And I want to talk about, because I'm sure that there are some people listening that are like,
Yeah.
well, how do I get over that fear of the criticism or whatever it is? Because there's some criticism where it literally doesn't matter. It's like, girl, it's strangers. Don't even let those
Yeah.
people affect you. But then we also have that fear of like, well, what will my friends think? What will my partner think? What will my
Yeah.
parents think? And part of my journey is that I ended up dropping out of college to work for myself full time. And it was one of the scariest decisions that I've ever made because I'm first generation American to two Liberian parents. And so their expectation is we're going to come to this country, we're going to start a family, we'll be able to put our kids through school and they can get a good job. And, they have the American
Yes.
dream in their mind. And so to have a daughter who's like, yeah, I'm dropping out of college to make MySpace pages is like, girl, you got me messed up.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yep.
so I was so fearful. And
Mm,
it's because I was operating in this people pleasing mindset. I think that's one of the things that I've had to work
huge.
through. It took years to work through people pleasing. I remember like in therapy, my therapist would ask me, Maya, what do you want? And it was so hard to answer that question
Mm,
because the answer would be rooted in what is the appropriate response based on, is this receptive to my parents? Is this receptive to the person I'm dating? Is this receptive to social media? And so sometimes you have to ask yourself, what is it that I truly want if I wasn't afraid to be judged by man, right?
yeah.
And so if you are dealing with, just that fear of your friends or family maybe criticizing you or you feel like they don't even support you, give them grace as well because just keep in mind that God gave you the vision. So
Yeah.
they're not going to see things how you are seeing it. And some of these people, they might just be projecting their own lack in their own life, or some of these people might even be trying to protect you. And I know for me, I'm able to see now, years later, that my parents were just trying to protect me. Like,
Yes.
girl, please don't drop out of college. We were
Yeah.
trying to save you. We want you to have a good job. And I could see that they were trying to protect me, but I knew then that something didn't feel right. I didn't have the spiritual maturity back then to say like, oh, it's my intuition or it's the Holy Spirit. I could sense that
Yeah.
I need to go full time in my business. So I'm grateful that I made that scary decision. It took years and it was the scariest decision, but it was also the most impactful decision because I wouldn't have been here had I kept trying to please my parents who are also not God. They're still
Yeah.
the most important people in my life, but at the end of the day, they are not God. And so we have
So
to even give our parents grace for um, maybe sometimes guiding us in the way that they think we should go, but it's not in alignment with where God wants us to go.
yeah, that's so profound. And even as I'm processing it, not even through an entrepreneurial perspective, but even just like in life in general, I have a mom now who is doing that. And I'm, 38 years old and I've got a family and I'm married. And I'm like, Mom, like, I love you, but I don't need that from you anymore. And yet her desire is protection. Her desire is to give me comfort because she wants comfort. Obviously, all of us are actually seeking comfort. Most of us seek it from things that aren't the Father, but we do so and then we get corrected when we're aligned to the Lord to be like, oh, I see what I did there. I falsely idled this, or I falsely idled your own sense of protection and comfort in what I wanted to control, rather than, like you said earlier, the creator, the one who already knows the future. Why don't we just trust him a little bit more? And so that
Mm,
jumping, that leaping into the next phase, the next level, the next desire that God has given you, there is always going to be this battle between flesh and spirit. And that might even be it's totally going to be against principalities too, because they don't want you. The enemy does not want you to operate in the fullness of who you're called to be. That is against their agenda. And so
Yes.
there's also that fighting and wrestling that happens as you took these steps and you leveled up in different ways for yourself. Besides that element of fear, what other like sense of not necessarily persecution, but failures did you run into that actually became like the winning thing, the opportunity rather than the failure?
Mm. I think also when I made the transition from web and graphic design to then coaching, it was I then would have to disappoint my clients that I've worked with
Mm,
for years, and I was doing their websites and doing their graphics and saying, okay, in 3 months we're gonna end our contract, and I'm gonna only be doing strategy. So recognizing that when you're being obedient to your calling, you're gonna disappoint people, which is why it is so important to break that spirit of people pleasing, because you can only serve, like, you have to decide what you serve. You're
yeah.
either going to serve God and what he's called you to do, or you're going to serve pleasing other people, and you're going to be disappointed at the end of the day trying to please these people because they really can't bring you the level of fulfillment that walking in your purpose will bring you.
Yeah.
So that was something that I had to deal with as well. So I would say that was probably the second scariest decision, but then again one of the most impactful.
Yeah.
And I also start to look at when I'm battling making decisions. So for those of you who are maybe not feeling clear, or you're trying to figure out what you should be doing with your business, three of the things that I look at are, is this going to be profitable? Is it going to make me money? So this is from a business standpoint, right? Because
Yep.
your business needs to make money. So I'm not
Yep.
talking about like non-business things. For your business, is this going to make me money? Is this going to have an impact? Will this actually serve people? Because if it's making money and it's not impacting people, there's going to be some lack of integrity there. So is it making me money? Is it creating impact, meaning serving people? And is it bringing me fulfillment?
Mm.
I need all of those things to be in alignment, because I don't need to be miserable while I'm serving people, because we want to serve people with a pure heart. I don't want to be miserable making money because I could just go get a job that I don't like to do that. I don't need to be feeling fulfilled, but then other people aren't being served, because it's like,
Good.
okay, well, this is now self-serving. So you have to look at all of those
Mm.
aspects. And I don't need to be fulfilled and serving people, but then I'm like, shoot, I'm broke. I don't know how I'm going
Right.
to pay my rent. So all of
That's
those
all the
things for me
ministry
have to,
people. We're talking to you. We
yes,
love you, but you are worthy.
we're talking to you. Okay.